Hey everybody, good evening. Welcome to High Ground News Media. This is Justin Dill. Tonight I'm going to be interviewing Chris Apple for Calhoun County Sheriff. He's on the phone with me tonight. Chris, how are you doing?
Good, Mr. Dent. How are you doing?
Doing pretty good, sir. Appreciate your time here tonight with me and our community to talk about your upcoming election that you're running for sheriff. All right, so question number one is going to be about leadership and experience. So, what experience in law enforcement or leadership prepares you to effectively serve as sheriff for Calhoun County?
So I've been in policing for right at 8 years. I started at the Anniston Police Department in 2018 in January, and then was there until November of 2021, and then that's when I went to the Calhoun County Sheriff's Office and was there from November of 21 until October of 2025. Uh, and in my time of policing, um, I have been chasing bad guys and fighting them and being proactive in the streets, proactively pursuing crime, which we have a lot of crime. A lot of people around here say Anniston's the problem city, but we have crime everywhere. And it's same crime, different zip code. So my favorite part was getting with my buddies or even just by myself and going out and trying to find people who had high risk felony warrants, even just misdemeanor warrants if it was a slow day and there wasn't anything good, to uh, chasing people out on traffic stops and on foot and in car, trying to catch the bad people so that the good people can sleep well at night.
All right, question number two, sir, is about vision for the office. What is your vision for the Calhoun County Sheriff's Office over the next 4 years, and how would your leadership improve public safety?
My main vision is that I know a lot of people got a lot of hate on Facebook for it, but is that we as a sheriff's office would serve people as Christ served us, to help those who are brokenhearted, who are needy, who are weak and can't defend themselves. We're called to a higher standard to help take care of and protect these people. So first and foremost, that's the main vision, is that we would, in all that we do, we would strive to be like Christ. But beyond that, man, the whole defund the police movement has really kicked off. It hasn't really affected us here, but you can see it in a lot of departments around the nation, that the public's view is, defang cops. Um, they don't need to be going to all this aggressiveness training and tactical training and all that. We need to make them soft and understanding. And I agree with that. We need to have compassion and empathy, and truly care for the people that we serve. But at the same time, we have to be physically, mentally prepared for the task of the job, and whether that be chasing somebody on foot, which happens unfortunately quite often in our county, along with chasing them in vehicle and all sorts of kind of stuff. We had an incident back in start of December last year where the county, it was in the Anniston Star covered it, but where they got in a rolling shootout with a suspect they tried to serve a warrant on, and ended up in a standoff on I-20. So we have plenty of crime and hardships in our county, and we got to be physically prepared to do so. So I want to increase not just the hours of training, because anybody can just go sit down in a class and meander and pass a test after 8 hours and a lunch. But I want to increase the quality of training, mainly, so that we take the lowest man and make him our highest performer, so that we're all operating on the highest standard possible, whether that be physically, tactically, emotionally or logically, all around the board. We don't want to be good at just one thing. We want to be good at everything.
Okay.
Jack of all trades and a master of none. So, but as for leadership, I haven't really ever been in a position of leadership. I was never like a corporal or a sergeant or any kind of rank. Whenever the guys needed me, I tried to lead by example of getting out there saying, this is what we do, especially with the young rookies that are very impressionable. Getting out there, working with them, teaching them, showing them, and stuff that I'd learned, giving them shortcuts on mistakes that I'd made. Even though I was never officially a training officer, they'd call me up all the time and ask what to do or for help, and I'd be more than happy to give it to them. Okay. So I'd like to carry that over and pour into the guys as much as I can.
Next topic we're going to talk about is community trust. How would you continue to build trust between the sheriff's office and the communities such, say, Anniston, Oxford, Jacksonville, and rural areas of Calhoun County?
Accountability at the top. The thing is, with the community, everybody knows that we're human and that humans are not perfect. Inevitably, we fail as individuals, as an agency, as a leadership. But instead of every time we fail, sweeping it under the rug or downplaying it or trying to hide it from the public, we come clean. We take 100% ownership. Even in my campaign, I've had the opportunity to demonstrate how I would do this, because reading 55 pages of election ethics and fair campaign practices, trying to understand it by myself, I missed the part of putting the political disclaimer of paid for by whoever on the bottom of my signs. And I got reported, and I didn't make any qualms or anything, and I made it known to all my supporters via Facebook post that, hey, I screwed up, but here's what I'm doing to fix it, and we're working on it now. So out there working on it, getting those labels put back on there so that we can be in compliance. And I think that's really what they want. They don't want perfection, because that's impossible, but they want to be able to trust us that when we say yes, our yes is yes and our no is no, and that we're honest, fair, and when we do mess up, we don't hide anything from them. And with in regards to the communities, or like the other agencies, I believe you said.
Yeah.
Anderson, Oxford, Jacksonville, Piedmont, Nohatchee. Just from being on the street for 8 years, I've just seen that the issues and the tensions between agencies don't come from the regular guys. It's always, or most of the time, admin getting in who's the bigger, better guy contest with each other. And then that causes tension, and like we had it for a while where a lot of people were leaving the county and going to Jacksonville for a short stint. I think it was like 6 or 7 people left and went to Jacksonville from the county, and it made the admin mad, so we weren't allowed to do anything with Jacksonville, whether that be warrants, or because we team up with them if we had some good warrants in their jurisdiction, and see if they had a guy or two to spare for backup.
Mm-hmm.
But we got barred from that and doing anything in city limits outside of serving civils and warrants. So it just causes a lot of unnecessary strife and resentment. So we would work to have some kind of junction or agreements between all agencies, which there's already MOUs set up for that. And MOUs is a piece of paper. It doesn't really define anything. So we've had to get, over time, regain trust and respect for one another as agencies.
All right, let's talk about crime priorities. What types of crime do you believe are the biggest threats to Calhoun County right now, and how will you address them as sheriff of our county?
Domestic violence, drugs, assaults, and theft. That's we have. I don't know how many domestic violence calls we go on every year, whether it was in Anniston or the county. I mean, every agency goes to them, and that's the most dangerous call that cops go on. And the second most dangerous is traffic stops. We get calls all the time for, at Anniston, we got calls all the time for shoplifting at Walmart. Oxford does the same, and there's somebody's stuff's always getting broken into or a car getting stolen. Assaults. I mean, we have a fair amount, whether that's just good old hand to hand action, or as a lot of people like to do nowadays, just shoot at each other. And that's highly dangerous in and of itself. And then the other one, the last one is drugs. Although it's not a violent crime, it's still very prevalent in our county. Many addicts are the victims of needing an escape at the hand. One of our many drug dealers just says, "Hey, I got something for you." Takes advantage of them, and so I don't want to just focus on catching the everyday users who were just caught between a rock and a hard place and made a bad decision, because they've all made bad decisions. I want to help them, and contrary to popular belief, one of the best ways to help them is to take the habit away from them, whether that's with rehab or.
There's been a huge mental health situation with some of these people that are just kind of around our area. How would you address mental health crises and stuff in that nature?
That's one thing that the sheriff's office does pretty dang good. We have a mental health officer or deputy, sorry, for a long time. It was when I started in 2021, and he was the mental health
John Garlic
guy. Before that, it was now Chief Deputy Moses.
Moses. Yes.
I believe now it's went to Deputy Kirby. But man, they got a process that they've been doing for years in partnership with Highland Health, where families can come and say, "Hey, this person's got issues," or if it's somebody that we deal with that has issues, we can even push for them from time to time. But where we go pick them up from the house and we take them to Highland Health, over in between RMC and the Tyler Center, and they get an attorney, they talk to a psychiatrist, and they get with their attorney, and they have a whole court session there at Highland Health with the probate judge, and then they, based on symptoms and whatever, what the family said and diagnoses, they either order them to outpatient treatment, where they can go home but follow up with a doctor every so often, or inpatient treatment at the CRP, the Crisis Residential Program in Alexandria, where they receive treatment. So we deal with that pretty well.
Okay.
That's something that they've been doing for 8, if not more years. I think they've been doing it the whole time I've been in law enforcement, which has been 8 years. So
accountability and transparency. You kind of touched on some of that a little bit. But let me see this question here. How would you ensure transparency and accountability within the sheriff's office while maintaining officer morale and effectiveness?
From my personal experience, can't speak on anybody else's, even though a lot of people there have had the same experience as me. Accountability doesn't go to rank, and that's just if you're above a sergeant, accountability doesn't apply to you. It seems like whenever we'll get in trouble for something, even if it's small, and we'll get a counseling or a reprimand, which is like a write up,
yeah,
or suspension, even firing at times, or termination. But admin does the same thing. They're violating, we get in trouble for violating policies, but they violate policy, and what to do, nothing happens to them. So it's the inconsistencies of administration holding us responsible and accountable for our actions, but when they do the same thing, no punishment befalls them, and they just walk out free and clear. And so that's going to stop. Because what is it if I violate the boot policy, the uniform policy, but an admin who's been behind a desk for 10 years goes out to lunch and violates the notifying dispatch their own policy by not calling out where they're eating if they're going to be there for more than 5 minutes. So we both violated policy. Those aren't two huge policies. It's not, if I'm wearing the wrong boots or the wrong undershirt or the wrong socks, it's not going to ruin anybody's life. And if the administration doesn't call out where they're stopping into Jack's to grab a 10-15 minute lunch, that's not going to ruin anybody's life. But the fact that we get wrote up, suspended, and fired for small policy violations, yet they're doing the same thing, and they're not writing themselves up or holding themselves accountable because they're admin. They've been behind the desk for 10 to 15 years. And I think being transparent with that, policy being policy, even if we have to rewrite and change a few things to make it flow and be more effective and more efficient in how we do things, that everyone, even Lord willing, if I win and become sheriff, myself be held accountable too.
Yes, sir.
So that includes me being counseled, written up, suspended, or possibly, if it's bad enough, stepping down from office. And I think that transparency and honesty from the admin will increase morale on the lower guys on the totem pole, because they see that he's not some untouchable, quote unquote, God with a little G. He's a dude just like us who doesn't think himself untouchable, doesn't think himself above anybody, but more so they're equal, who just has to be their boss sometimes.
The county jail is one of the sheriff's largest responsibilities. What steps would you take to manage the jail safely with staffing and inmate rehabilitation?
The jail is definitely I guess if you could, if the term is appropriate, the problem child. I mean, we got the joke in Calhoun County is there's more drugs in the county jail than there are on the streets. But sadly, this is true. A lot of times it's been because of staffing. I know at one point when we were really low in the jail, there was, I think, 4 COs at the main county jail, and then we lease Anniston's city jail to house all the females. And so there's, I believe 2 to 3 over there. So you're looking at 6 to 7 COs trying to manage. And at one point we had some of St. Clair County's inmates because they were having jail renovations. So we went from our average 3 to 400 inmates to almost between 550 and 650 in a busy month. So it was, and having 7, that's just dangerous. We have 1 CO who's been in fights and gotten stabbed 6 different times. So definitely, the fact that you can go into any cell at any time and find shanks and shivs. I mean, we had one guy break a mop handle and one of the metal corner pieces that supports the bed, and sharpen it up, tie it together with a ripped up shirt, and made a jailhouse tomahawk. We had to go in and fight him, but it's kind of hard to fight somebody with a tomahawk when one of the COs screwed up and was playing around with a taser and pointed it to his head like he was going to shoot himself. So they took the tasers from everybody, not just that one guy, and then made him should have made him do classes to revoke his certification, and make him go through the classes again to re-earn it. But they just took the tasers from every CO. To the best of my knowledge, unless it's changed since October, the only ones that were allowed to have tasers were sergeants, I believe. Sergeants or corporals. So that still leaves the vast majority of them not having tasers. So one of the first things we would do is get them stab-resistant vests and give them their tasers back and get them all recertified. The other way is, the inmates. The other joke is the inmates run the jail. So we would have to turn it around to where we now run the jail. Now, whether that's having deputies come in on overtime if they want it, but doing regular, trying to get all the COs certified, which is like the jail SWAT team, and then getting regular deputies and coming in regularly just to random times, random days. We know it's for us to know and them to find out when we're coming. But we walk in, raid set, toss sections, and anybody who's found anything, charge them. And I hate to sound that way, but we've had so many people be stabbed and beat up and sexually exploited that it's not safe when the inmates run the jail and we don't. So that's going to be and I think by taking care of the guys, the COs, giving them the equipment that they need. I know a lot of them, when I worked there, they were expressed concerns over the second floor balconies. It's just a, waist high metal railing, like most of them are. And they have fought a lot of people on the second floor. And one of their big concerns is fighting and then flipping over, whether it be them or the inmate.
Yeah.
And falling and breaking something real bad or dying. So another big project, which the jail's a huge project, would be making sure that railing goes all the way to the roof or all the way to the ceiling. So that way the inmates and the COs are protected even during conflict. Small little changes like that, and actually sitting down with the people that are on the floor, in the cells, in the sections, walking around, doing all the checks and stuff, asking the COs what they need, because nobody knows what that jail needs more than the people that walk around it every single day. So getting with them, hearing their voice, getting their ideas, and seeing what we can make happen.
How would you combat the drug crisis and trafficking issues affecting Calhoun County and Northeast Alabama?
So we have Interstate 20, or I-20 for short, that runs through our county. 1,500 miles of nothing but drug, sex, labor, and gun trafficking. It goes all the way from East Texas to up in the Carolinas. It's outside of I-10. It and I-10 compete for the biggest trafficking route in the South, or the Southeast. So we have 8 to 9 miles in between Cleveland County and Talladega County.
Mm-hmm.
And I have been, me personally, I have asked if we could work it. I have been told no. They don't want us on I-20. I-20 is not ours. It's Oxford's. But Oxford has an on-ramp, and generally, if anything happens on I-20, we got called to respond to it. So that kind of tells me that I-20 is ours, and it's in our county. And it is, back, I believe, 2024, I think Austin, Texas, Austin or Houston, was #1 for trafficking of women and children in the nation. And I haven't seen the stats. Some have come out, and I may just be looking in the wrong place. But as for 2025, the trend was that Atlanta was going to take #1. And that's just a hop, skip, and a jump away from us.
Yeah.
The main problem is, on I-20, we have Birmingham and Atlanta. We are sandwiched right in the middle. Smack dab in the middle. An hour and a half one way and an hour the other. So it doesn't get hardly any closer than that. And even though before I really ever asked for permission, I'd get out on I-20 in the early morning hours and see if I could catch something. And I caught a couple small things. People who had left Atlanta. There's one guy who had lived in Atlanta, went to Birmingham to drop off stuff. He had $5,000 in his pocket, a gold-plated Glock with an extended mag, and AR-15 pistol with 2 much-spent magazines and a duffel bag full of shake. I say full of, with a little bit of shake in it. Shake is like the little flakes from marijuana, kind of like when you have a dip in, or if you dip, when you get a little bit of tobacco on your fingers that you flick off. The shake is the street term for that, but with marijuana. So he had more than likely delivered some bricks to Birmingham and got paid. I went to a human trafficking class in, I believe, January 2022, and up in Huntsville. And the guy had some programs that, he showed us that were free for law enforcement to use. one of them being Spotlight, and he gave us access to a training account so that we could kind of follow along with him on how stuff worked. And we were in Huntsville, and he made a fake ad just to show us how quick it is to get probable cause on people to go and get warrants and arrest them. And he made a fake ad for a underage girl, 16 years old was what the ad said. And within 3 minutes, he had 30 to 40 responses.
Oh my God.
From Gunnersville, Huntsville, whatever the Madison, the other surrounding areas, and they were ready to meet and didn't care that she was a juvenile. We even called one of them in the class. Said, "Hey man, you're the subject of our experiment in the police class. Quit trying to talk to underage girls." But we had one that he looked up and ended up finding the guy on Facebook and tracked him down in 30 minutes or less. We had enough probable cause to take 3 or 4 of them to jail. Get warrants to take them to jail. So me being a little silly, when I got back from that class, I was on night shift and it was a weekend. It was a Sunday night. And so the guy got on Spotlight, found out I wasn't supposed to do that, but the training account worked. I guess asked for forgiveness. But I just searched up Oxford, Alabama. And it was a Sunday night, so from Friday to that Sunday, a little over 4,000 sex ads had been posted for Oxford, Alabama. And around about half of them were suspected juveniles. The program that it uses, it goes to the internet, scrapes the websites, and pulls it all to one place so that we can view it, so we don't have to go to 50 different sites. So it condenses it, and then you can there's programs to backtrack numbers. So you can't say it's not around here. Even a couple years ago in Rainbow City, I believe it was ICAC, the Internet Crimes Against Children, got a ping for like a Dropbox or something, and went to go check it out, and uncovered a child sex trafficking ring in Rainbow City. So we're riddled with child abuse, sexual exploitation of minors. We've arrested teachers, even a teacher assistant who was going through college to become a teacher, but while he was doing his intern stuff that they had to do, got arrested because he had stuff on his Dropbox, child pornography that they got a hit on, and ended up arresting him, and he was teaching the age group that he was trying to be the predator of. Sick and nasty. So what we have to do is I even went to a class for interstate interdiction with ACE and interdiction, and great class, learned a lot. I was allowed 2 or 3 traffic stops a day as long as I wasn't busy. That's not really no time to get out there and fine tune and hone all those. Even though I can find drugs just about as easy as anybody else. It's not hard to find. But to find the big loads that are coming through to our county, either coming through or to, takes time. It takes a little bit of practice getting out there and spotting all the new information that I've learned. And then after a couple weeks or so, 2-3 weeks, they ran it up the chain to the administration, and they said, no, we're not working out 20. So they paid $250 or $350 per a class to just basically be wasted. So my first thing to combat that is to get with Cleveland County and Talladega County and have an interdiction team, at least at the sheriff's office, but see about cross-deputizing, see if they have 1 or 2 guys that they want to cross-deputize with us. And that way we can have kind of from the Georgia state line to the end of Talladega County. Starting off, if more want to join in, good. We all should be the same team. So see if we can get a cross-deputized, kind of like a little joint task force for I-20, because it'll come up I-20, hit 431, and if you catch 50 tags in Alabama, which is Madison County where Huntsville is, They shoot down 431, hit I-20, go to Atlanta, pick up the dope, come back down I-20, and right back up north on 431. So if you sit on the north side of 431 and you stop 50 tags that start behaving suspiciously when they pass you, you got a good chance of finding something. So equip the guys, give them the training to spot all this. One of our guys, I don't believe he works there anymore, but when he did, he made a traffic stop and had a human trafficking case on 431.
Oh, wow.
So where trafficking is prevalent everywhere, and saying that it's not here, is absolutely
that's the illusion
false.
at least. But I think we all know better, really.
Yeah, and the fact that I've had an investigator tell me that they know that we have a couple cartel trap houses here in Calhoun County, but they don't want to mess with it because they don't want to mess around with the cartel and rile them up. And to that I say, if you're too scared to do the job, leave.
Yeah.
If we don't fight them, who will?
I agree.
And if we don't stand up to them, who will? And cowardice isn't something that we can have as police, not in this day and age.
All right, let's talk about budget and resources. Sheriffs must manage taxpayer resources carefully. How would you balance public safety needs with responsible budget management?
So, last November 2025, I didn't want to campaign on a false promise to something that I was, not able to do. So when the Lord originally called me to apply for the appointing of sheriff back in March, I did, and then I didn't get it, but he called me to run as well. I feel like he told me to. And when he did, I was praying, seeking, asking, Lord, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. I don't know how to do this. Are you sure it's the right fella? And he knows me too well. I believe in my heart of hearts that he told me to do this and has led me to do it, and I'm more than thrilled to do so. The sheriff of Calhoun County currently makes $117,000 and some change. Maybe $117,700, but don't quote me on the hundreds. But it's $117,000 and some change. The Lord knows that all that, if I got that money, man, we'd be going to Texas Roadhouse, Taco Bell, and Disney World. So none of the admin, I won't say none, but a lot of times the admin ignore or don't even pour into the guys. And so the Lord laid upon my heart to reduce what I make every year to $50,000, which is, if my math is right, it could be wrong, but that's about what the average deputy makes. Just your normal deputy, no rank, no sergeant or lieutenant, just normal patrol guy, roughly $50,000. So God help me to keep my math easy, where I make $50,000 a year, take the remainder, which is $67,000 and some change, and reinvest it as a training fund into the guys, using it for firearms training, physical training, combatives training. Because the better you are at fighting, the least amount of hurt you have to put on somebody to get them under control safely. I know it sounds like arming them to the teeth is bad, but if you arm them to the teeth with head knowledge, fist knowledge, and firearm knowledge, they know when and how to use it. They're more capable, and that's what he's led me to do. So first and foremost, with the budget, I will be cutting my pay down to $50,000 and reinvesting that $6,000 or $67,000 and some change back into the sheriff's office every year for the 4 years that I'm sheriff, and more if I get elected for more terms. And the big reason with that is I have an issue with how we spend money. A lot of people have an issue with how money was spent by admin. That we would just spend and spend and spend, and then beg the commission for money, and then when we didn't get money because of our bad stewardship of our own money, admin would blame the commission and put a bad taste in everybody's mouth about the commission. This is not fair to the commission, and it's not fair to the agency. At the Republican Party meeting in February, Sheriff Hurst got up and spoke and said about $20 million comes through the sheriff's office every year, and the sheriff's office makes up just about in every county of Alabama. The sheriff's office is about half of that county's commission's budget. Whether it be 48, I think we were 52% last year. But whether it be 47, 45 to 50, 55, whatever, generally we're about half. There's a lot of useless spending, especially with paper waste. We're probably 50-50 on digital. We could go 90% digital, 10% paper, and save a bunch of money there. There's a lot of stuff we could cut. And I plan to trim our budget as much as possible. But to be a lean, mean, crime-fighting machine, that sounds a little corny, but if 50% of the budget is us operating at 100%, I want us to be able to operate at 100% on even 48, 47, 46, 45% of the budget. So then that extra 5%, we have this extra play money that if something comes up, or if we have something that we need, or we can take that extra money that we don't have to go and beg the commission for and reinvest it into ourselves to better the lives of us, the inmates, everybody we come in contact with.
Okay. I got a sidebar question for you. Forgive the pun, but how are you guys on technology and as far as like canine dogs, like drug dogs and stuff like that? Where are you guys at with that?
Patrol can't have them, but everybody else can, and I don't understand why. Well, here's why.
Say that again one more time. Say that again.
Patrol can't have them. And probably never will under the current administration. But everywhere else can have a dog, but not patrol. And there's a reason for it. I'm all for it. I think every shift should have at least one. But they got some kind of grant or partnership, I believe. I could be wrong, but where they were trying to get a dog in every school, in every county school.
Okay.
Whether that be they have a combination of drug dogs, and then that we can't use on the street because they're trained to detect tobacco, since kids can't have that. So they'd be hitting on half the cars they pull over.
Yeah.
So we can't use them. And then the other ones are gun and bomb dogs for munitions and explosive stuff. There was a deputy several years ago who pushed for a dog, found a dog, found a car with a cage, or found a cage for the car for little to no cost, and really sold the admin on it. And then he got the dog, had it for a while. K9 on patrol, baby, let's roll. And he goes to a different agency.
Oh, wow.
And then, so they kept the sheriff's office kept the dog, sent another guy to go be its trainer. And he had the dog for a while. I'm not sure how long each of them had the dog, but he had it for a while. And a dog can only go through 1 or 2 trainers before it starts. You got to retire it because it just doesn't respond like it does to the first 1 or 2 of them.
Yeah.
But the second trainer then went to a different agency in a different state and took the dog with him. So admin has been, they're like, well, the dog isn't really retirement age. He's still young, still got a lot of life in him. And I mean, the third guy is probably going to ruin him. So went with the guy to the other agency in a different state, and that put a bitter taste in the admin's mouth. And everybody in the jail can have 2 dogs. Every school in Calhoun County can have dogs, or every county school in the county can have dogs, but patrol cannot. And I don't understand the brain block behind it. Because if we need a dog, we're calling Weaver, Aniston.
Well, Anderson's got to retiring their drug dog this last year, if not mistaken. They retired 2 dogs, and Oxford only has that bomb dog, Havoc. So, like, that's one of the problems that I see. Is like, if a mutual agency needs a drug dog to come out, would your deputy be on call 24/7 for that? Number one. 2, how would you respond to that?
Yes, so Weaver, their canine officer, she's fabulous. If you call her at 2 o'clock in the morning, she's coming.
I've heard about some problems with that, but the dog being asleep and not wanting to move with another agency, I'll say that. So
yeah, she's great. We've used her a lot, especially if we're out on 431, because they could just cut through Falls Chapel Road and be there in no time. But it doesn't matter what time of day or night you call her, she's coming. I tried to call Oxford a couple times, and they haven't had anything. The 2 dogs we can use are in the jail, but since the jail had issues with staffing, if we needed them, and we actually got approval to use one, because it met all the ticks for the reasonable, articulable suspicion that crime would be occurring.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we got told no because they couldn't spare losing, letting the CO go, which is one of them's a sergeant, one of them's a lieutenant. The jail would be so low they couldn't spare them, so we just had to cut loose and let them go. So it only causes problems. And I mean, if you have one on every shift, you have one on each day shift, one on each night shift, so that's 4 dogs total. Unless that handler is off, you could call the other night shift guy or the other day shift guy, and they come in and get paid overtime. So.
Right. Okay. Working with other agencies, how would you strengthen cooperation between local police departments, state troopers, and other federal agencies?
So the sheriff's office has good relationships with the federal agencies around. Like the FBI, I believe we have a liaison at our office. I'm down in the investigations room, or the investigations area. The cooperation really just has its flare-ups. I know I spoke on the issue with Jacksonville a little earlier in the interview, but that was a flare-up, and then it's died back down. After a couple months, it died back down, and tensions died down. But I'm not for sure. I wasn't there when all the MOUs were written of mutual aid and service amongst all the agencies in the county, so I don't know what they'll say, and I can't speak on those, except that I know that we have them. But really, it just be the issues usually come from admin to admin. So it would be sitting down with all the admins, if we could ever get the schedules lined up. But if not all the admins, at least the heads of departments or agencies, and hashing it out. Just communicating of what works, what doesn't. And if it requires some rewriting of MOUs and re-signing, we'll do that. But there's too many bigger man contests for agencies that are all supposed to be on the same team. We're all supposed to work together to fight the bad, not work on stabbing each other, sabotaging each other, and preventing each other from doing that.
Right. What motivates you personally to serve the people of Calhoun County as sheriff, and what qualities make you the best candidate for this job?
the lack of the main thing that motivates me personally is being out on calls, interacting with people. I have done nothing but deal with victims. I shouldn't even say victims, but people on their worst day thus far of their life. Very rarely do we get to go out on a call and it be happy-go-lucky. The people who called us to come help them from something are happy. It's usually because they're in trouble, in need, hurt, physically, mentally, emotionally. And I know I've only got 8 years of experience. Definitely on paper, my competitors have 10 to 20 years on me. But they've been behind the desk. Well, I shouldn't say they, because I don't know about one of the candidates running against me. But most police admin among agencies, you could even go to the whole nation, have been behind the desk longer than I've been a police. 10, 15 years. They crawl out of their bed when something serious pops off. But other than that, they're in the office, and I know they have meetings and responsibilities outside of that, but to the public and the agency that dealing with administrative issues and finances and all the fun stuff that comes with the sheriff's office. But it's the guys that haven't been on the street, haven't seen the change, even in the past year or two. How it's really affected guys on the street, how policies of what we can and can't do and certain laws affect what we can and can't do for victims. And even changes in Supreme Court cases. A lot of them haven't been to updates in years on Supreme Court rulings and how it's changed and affects us. And so we're writing policies and stuff that sometimes just don't work. And I've seen firsthand how we treat people in need sometimes, and it's not good. Yeah. Sometimes the deputy will try to go above and beyond and really try to help somebody or do right by somebody, and then they get in trouble for it. They get talked down to for it, and when it's brought to light, when the deputy says something, who be snitching, talking behind back to admin, and then it causes a whole lot of issues. And they say with policing, we wear bulletproof vests. The front is for the outside of the agency, but the front panel is for the outside of the agency, but the back panel is for the inside of the agency. And so if we do not police ourselves, if we don't remove the rod from our eye first, how can we leave the sheriff's office and remove the splinter out of yours? So the motivation for me after, when I spoke on running for the appointment process for sheriff, when Sheriff Wade retired, Governor Ivey said, well, we're not going to do. So when the sheriff retires, I guess I should say, leaves term early, writes a letter to, best I understand, writes a letter to the governor, says, hey, this guy, good guy, he's pretty cool, think he'd make a good sheriff for the rest of my term. The governor says, cool, I like it. That guy's now sheriff till the end of the one who retired's term. If the governor's like, nah, I don't like that idea, you have the appointment process where they take out, you can put an application in and submit a resume. You go down to Montgomery and you interview with, you interview down in Montgomery, and then Governor Ivey makes a decision as to which one of the candidates gets it. So when that happened, it was myself, the current sheriff, who at the time was the jail captain, Sheriff Hurst, the patrol captain at the sheriff's office, Joey Stone, or Captain Stone, I should say, sorry, and the other candidate who's running, the former state trooper who did sex offender investigations with us for about a year or so, Daryl Collins. And as we know, didn't get it with KI. Governor Ivey appointed Sheriff Hurst, to which, in my personal experience, I knew the admin would not like, because when they found out I applied for the interview, they completely started treating me different. And my sergeant would afterwards, he was nitpicky with me. He was nitpicking my paperwork on boxes and stuff that no matter how many times you clicked them in the computer program on reports, when you printed it, they would never populate. And so I would have to go with a pen and mark the reports by hand. And one of the guys, we had to stay over because of a late call one night when I was finishing up my paperwork, filling out the bubbles by hand. And he said, "Man, what are you doing your report?" I explained all that to him, and he said, "Well, we don't have to do that. All those boxes, Sergeant ain't never docked me on those boxes or bubbles. So he's literally doing that just to you." So that's kind of where the targeting began.
Mm-hmm.
And then in September 16th, I was suspended for eating birthday breakfast with my dad while on duty. I left my district and went to another district and had birthday breakfast with my dad. And that's not something that's really frowned upon. Typically, you let your sergeant know, but I was told that morning that my sergeant was assisting in teaching a taser class to some new hires and people in the COs in the jail. And seeing that it's a regular practice to go out of zone to get food, I didn't think that it was necessary to notify him when he was busy. If I was just going to take a 15 to 30 minute breakfast with my dad. Got sent to a call at the tail end of breakfast, so I finished the last bite of my biscuit, refilled my sweet tea, and me and my dad walked out in the parking lot. And then by the time I got to the parking lot, dispatch asked me for an ETA because it was a house fire call in Hobson City, and I was at the Bojangles in Jacksonville. And I said, 20 minutes. And after that, I hugged my dad, told him happy birthday, got in the car, and by the time I pulled out of Bojangles parking lot to Highway 21, my sergeant was calling me saying, "Why do you have a 40-minute ETA?" I said, 40? I told him 20. So then he was like, "Well, I don't need you on the other side of this and that, on the other side of this zone, and blah, blah, blah." And I'm like, "Sergeant, if I was in Ohatchee, I would be further from my call than I am right now." So, I completely understand, but this is something that people do, especially with how he had the zones split up. Whoever was in the northwest, north central, there's no food up there, so they had to come out of their zone to get food. So I got wrote up for that, and then on the 30th, I went to on the 30th, the 29th or 30th, I went to a domestic violence call, where I did not obtain written witness statements from two witnesses who saw the tail end of the event, or the incident, I should say. But it is not required in policy to do so. And so the case, we put photos of the case file, and I had a lot of calls and that late call, and kids were not sleeping great, whatever excuse I could come, you want to come up with. I genuinely forgot to put the photos in the case file. And so when the night shift sergeant called me because the guy had come back to the house and the neighbors were calling, he said he tried to call me twice and I didn't answer, which you can even ask my wife. My phone was having issues and she'd have to call me 5 to 7 times before it ever go through. But so then he called my sergeant to see what was going on. And my sergeant didn't really know anything. And so the night shift sergeant texted me. And so I called him immediately. And through a application we have on our phones, I uploaded the photos to the case file and sent them to him via text message in case he was already on scene and didn't have access to his desk. So before we ever got off the phone, the photos were uploaded to the system and he had them in his hand on his phone. The next day, I get hit with a 60-hour suspension for that. And my sergeant at the time was, I hate to say it, but he hit me on the incompetence, the policy violation of incompetence, and one other thing, but I can't remember that offhand. But while he was in violation of policy, I mean, his boots were out of policy. He knew he was out of policy. He had been called out for it and still refused to change it. So he's writing me up on policy violation while he himself is violating policy. So talked with them, and they told me that from my sergeant's mouth, I talked with him and the lieutenant. And from my sergeant's mouth, he said, well, there's no clearly defined line as to when we do or do not obtain a written witness statement. It's usually a judgment call. To which I got mad, and I said, I'm getting a 60-hour suspension for a judgment call. So I took the suspension, and then I was like, well, I had 2 kids' birthdays in October, and I couldn't. We'd have been homeless by November. So I recanted my accepting of it, but I admitted guilt, but requested that I have a hearing to see about a possible reduction in suspension time. At the hearing, didn't go how I wanted or how I would have liked, and they ended up firing me for it. But at the time, it was targeting. I was the only one being written up, suspended for all these minor things that other deputies were doing, because there were other deputies that weren't putting photos in case files. There was one time where we had a case with the investigators, and one of the guys on my shift was getting fussed at for not having it done, but it took the investigator 2 or 3 days to put his body cam in. They can't fully approve it till that's in. So they never got written up or suspended for that, to the best of my knowledge. Even in my hearing where I tried to fight my termination due to being targeted, the panel asked, or the Civil Service Board asked, now Chief Deputy Moses, if anybody else had been written up or suspended or pressed on these matters. He's like, well, I haven't, but I don't know, and I don't think anybody has, but I don't know for sure. So blanketed cover up of no, nobody's been in trouble for this. It's just been him, and I felt it was retaliatory for running against the current standing sheriff. A lot of the other guys felt it was retaliatory for it, but when I called on them to be my witnesses and speak on my behalf, they ghosted me. They just hung me out to dry because they saw what happened to me, and one of them didn't respond. The other 2 said, man, I got kids. I'm not trying to get on the Ride Up Express. I'm just trying to keep my head, they're basically trying to stay out of the way because they didn't want what happened to me to happen to them. So my biggest motivation for running, after all that's out of the way, is admin treats us like trash most of the time. Because I brought up to the lieutenant shortly thereafter. I talked to him one-on-one after the suspension. Later that day, after I cooled off, I brought up to him a couple of policies that even they violate. I'm like, so what are we doing? Like, Because he asked, why is it always me that gets in trouble? I don't know. Why is it always me? Y'all are violating policy too. So my main motivation is to take care of the little guy in the agency, to hold admin to a higher standard of accountability, so that the targeting issues, because it hasn't just been with me. There was a sergeant that they pushed out. There's been other people that they've targeted in my short 4 years there, and the unfair treatment and the backstabbing, the two-handedness, the lie to your face to make you feel good, but then sell you out to just look good to their buddies. Because if you're not in the buddy or the inner circle,
yep,
you're not getting anything. So that's my main motivation for running is cleaning up our mess and holding ourselves as leaders more accountable than we are because they're really not, and taking care of those who call on us when they need us. Because I don't want what happened to me to happen to somebody else, because I know what it's like to panic and have to go through 2 kids' birthdays and the holidays with no job, scrambling, searching for any kind of work. And it's nothing. I lost 20 pounds in 2 weeks from stress because I never even had a job and couldn't provide for my family. And I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy. So that's my main motivation is we got to clean up our mess, and hopefully people will see the example that we set and follow it, so that law enforcement as a whole can begin to heal.